This podcast is for the Jewish female singer who's ready to get out of her head and finally take exciting steps towards the singing career she's always wanted. I'm your host, Nechama Leah, and I am so excited and honored to be a part of your singing journey. Hello, and welcome back to the Jewish Singer Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today is a really, really exciting episode. A long time in the making. I have my very first guest on the podcast, Lizzi Serling, who is an amazing singer and vocal coach, concert leader, constitutes giver, and she is a dear friend of mine, and I am so excited to have her on the podcast. I think you're really going to get a lot out of our conversation. We are talking about what is Jewish music, what constitutes Jewish music today. And if you enjoy this episode, don't forget to share it with your friends. And without further ado, Okay. Lizzi Serling, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the Jewish Singer Podcast.
Yay.
I'm so excited. You're my first guest.
So exciting.
Podcast. Up until now, it's been just me. So I'm very excited to have you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So can you start by just telling me a little bit, telling whoever's listening, a little bit about your background in music and how you got here?
Sure. So I'll start from today and then I'll rewind. So I am a vocal coach and musician, singer. So I get to sing all day for work, singing with other people, teaching people how to sing, women and girls. And then I also play concerts, constitutes, and wherever people have me. I got into this because I actually started in show business professionally when I was 4 years old. I'm 32 now, in California. Okay. That's when I got my agent and started working. And yeah, I did a lot of work in musical theater, some in commercials and other, professional work as a kid. Took a little break for high school. And then I came to Israel when I was 17 and became religious. I didn't grow up religious. And then almost immediately started teaching, just starting to kind of like give over what I had, like a little of what I had learned. And then that turned into my main passion as I taught more and more, and I saw what it's like to empower women and girls to use their voices. And I learned a lot about technique along the way by seeing what worked and problem solving with people. And then that became my main passion in business, and I love it a lot.
Amazing. And I'm your biggest fan, by the way.
If
you guys didn't know, Lizzi is amazing.
Thanks.
Okay, so I was wondering, first of all, this is just a random question before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes, but
yeah.
What kind of voice lessons or like a voice training did you have when you were doing all of that crazy professional acting?
So I did have vocal coaches. Like I had one for contemporary pop, and then I had one that I did opera with specifically, but also I feel like I learned the most on the job. So when I was doing a production, then the musical director, the work that I did together with the musical director of the productions that I was in really taught me a lot about music and a lot about vocal technique, and then just being surrounded by really talented actors, because so a lot of shows before they open on Broadway in New York, they open in California to put it in front of a regional audience and test it out. So I had the opportunity to work with some really amazing Broadway directors and actors and singers. And so I was like a sponge, soaking up what I saw them do and just trying to emulate that. And so a lot of it was just sort of copying,
So cool. Oh, I'm jealous. Wholly jealous, as they say. So obviously today you're singing more Jewish music. Mm-hmm. And can you tell me a little bit about that transformation or that transition into singing Jewish music and how that felt for you?
Sure. So it's been a process. It's my experience with transitioning from non-Jewish music to Jewish music was very much a reflection of just my Baal Tshuva process in general, which I know you relate to, right? Which is like it has its ups and it has its downs. It has its moments of feeling of extreme connection, and then its moments of feeling of like loss of identity and confusion. And when I first came to Israel, I immediately, the thing I connected to was the music that I was hearing. So specifically, my first time at the Kotel on a Friday night, hearing the women singing Kabbalah Shabbos, and like I had such an intense emotional experience, right? Or hearing like the Zmiros. It was really interesting because almost immediately, like even when I was really newly from, it was like I absorbed these nigunim and these Zmiros, and I felt like I knew them already. It was like I remembered them even though I had never heard them before, which I know sounds very woo-woo. But
aren't Jews woo-woo?
Yes, we're pretty woo-woo. Woi woi.
Woi woi. My daughter, she doesn't know how to say O's that aren't oi. She says,
Oh, really?
Can you tell me a story?
Oh, really?
She's joking, I think. She knows it's funny.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
I had a friend once who called it COVID. And we died. Or maybe it was Karina. I don't know. Whatever it was, but we were we were cracking up. Anyway, so
you said that. Sorry to interrupt you. It's just that I noticed that you do know so much Jewish music. Like, I mean, I guess you've been frum for a while now, but you know the music and sing the music as if it's just like very second nature to you. And I'm very in awe about that because I struggle with that, knowing Jewish music before, you know.
Yeah, I mean, a part of that is just whatever this weird connection is of almost like past life. Like I just feel like I knew it already, but also it's been my job for the past, how long have I been gigging in the Jewish world now? Like 12 years, right? To try to put together shows that people want to listen to. And so I've made it my job to learn the classic constitutes songs, to learn the songs that everybody loves to sing along to. I try to stay on top of what's currently happening in Jewish music. I ask young people, I ask old people, like, what are you listening to? What do you like? And then also in being a teacher, you see people bring songs in. Right. So a lot of the music that I've learned throughout the years has been from students bringing it in. And then me saying, oh, I like that, I'm going to listen to more from that artist. But I've spent a lot of time listening to all types of Jewish music, Hasidic music, Mizrahi music, A.B. Rottenberg, old classic Journeys music, and now like I've been listening to Thai, and it's part of the business as like a Jewish singer to keep your finger on the pulse of like what are people listening to now, and what do people expect to hear when they go to a concerts, what are people hoping for at a concert, you know? It's unusual, right? Because outside of the Jewish community, a musician doesn't necessarily have
They're
to
looking to push the boundaries almost,
yeah,
like, or innovate.
Yeah, it'll be mostly original music and then like maybe one or two covers versus like a Jewish artist that's reversed unless they become all of their music becomes very famous in and of itself, and then they can just do their own music. But everybody starts out with playing songs that everybody already knows. And there's no worse feeling than like preparing a song and getting up in front of a crowd and playing it and nobody knows it. Which I've had plenty of hit or misses, you know. I do my best based on like what's the age group of the people, where are they from, you know, hashkafa, where are they, and I try to make assumptions and do research about what kind of music are these people going to know, and most of the time I hit the nail on the head. But every once in a while, like there's always at least one song in every show that gets less of a response than I expected it to, and it always surprises me.
And by response, do you mean that they know it and sing along, or just that they enjoyed it?
That they know it and sing along.
Yeah. Is that always your goal? Because what if you're just doing a concert and you just want to wow the crowd, and you're going to do that with your voice?
Right. So I guess that just is, that's a lot of what I do now, is like, it's about bringing together an experience of Jewish women singing together. So it's less about me performing and everybody listening and more about me creating a backdrop in which everybody can join together and sing together. I have had my opportunities to just sing and people are just listening, and that's where like my original music will come in, or things like Regal, right? Nobody's singing along because they don't know the music yet. Right. But I find that at least right now there's a market for people want to go to something that they can sing. They don't just want to watch somebody sing. They want a group experience.
Group immersive experiences are really powerful. And arguably like what it's all for right now. Right. Like why do we have the koach of singing and music? Like it really is a community experience. So you mentioned your original music. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your original music, which I happen to love?
Sure. So
what style is it, would you call it?
That's the big question, isn't it? Yeah. A lot of what I've written something like 20 to 25 songs in the past 10 years, and a lot of them lean folky. So it's like almost twangy country Jewish folk music. And for a while I had a band called Ber Mayim Chaim. Shout out to Miriam and Leora. And you came to our show in Nachaot. So we were a guitar, cello, and violin, and 3-part harmony. And it was very folky, and that fit a lot of my music, and I really loved it. And then after Ber Mayim Chaim broke up, when COVID happened and we all went in different directions, COVID, Karina, I started writing things that were a lot more R&B gospel. And then recently it got folky again. And then this new song that I just wrote is like pretty pop. Yeah. And that's the one that I'm going into the studio next week to start to record. So keep your eyes open, your eyeballs peeled for that. But it's gospel-y, definitely. All of the music that I've written, just getting us kind of in the direction of the conversation that I know is coming, has definitely not been the traditional Jewish sound. There's definitely a twist.
So when you were mentioning earlier too about like making it your job to consume lots of different styles, or you just kind of wanted to when you first came to Israel, do you notice a through line? Like what do you in your experience consider like the stereotypical Jewish sound, if there is one?
Well, we have nigunim and zmiros, right? That's its own category. And those historically are like tunes from like Polish aristocracy. Like I'm saying, like where are the old drinking songs? Like there's a lot of really interesting influences, non-Jewish influences for those Jewish tunes. But because they are, repeated at Shabbos tables and in shuls, like they become familiar and we know them. There's the Karlebach sound. Yes. There's the Karlebach sound, which is its own world and its own thing, which I absolutely love. I love a Karlebach Kabbalah Shabbos. There's like nothing like it. Then there is like the Hasidish world. And within the Hasidish world, there's like the more Karlebachi, like strummy, like there's klezmer. And then there's like the dance music, the like very techno heavy Hasidic dance music. That's its own thing. And then it seems like within the Litvish world, so we have we could talk about men and we could talk about women. There's Mizrahi music, right? And then which is like very Middle Eastern, Arabic inspired, right? And then there's like the Mizrahi dance music also. And then within the Litvish world, most things that rise to the top that gain tremendous like popularity are pop, like very poppy. Especially women. Right? A lot of the women Jewish singers, it's very poppy and also like a storytelling aspect a lot of the time in the music. Piano, some strings. We all kind of know that sound. We know what it sounds like.
I think we're going to have to come back to this vocal technique conversation. Tell me about this conversation that you had, or this experience that you had, being told, or maybe there's been music multiple times, being told that your sound is not a Jewish sound.
So I had an opportunity like a year ago to show my music to a Jewish producer who works with a lot of Jewish singers. And he was like, I love your music. He really, really liked it. He said a lot of really nice things. And he said, but I don't think it'll sell in the Jewish world. And
now,
then
did he say why?
He didn't. But he did say, that's a compliment. Which is confusing because this is someone who has had, who has successfully produced Jewish singers. And so, but he didn't feel that I have, maybe it's the sound, maybe it's the look of a Jewish singer. And that was hard.
He didn't tell you exactly what.
He didn't tell me exactly what.
That's what's most frustrating.
He even said that he was happy to work with me in a non-Jewish capacity. And to sell my music to the non-Jewish world and to work together like that. And I was like, yeah, thank you, but
that's not your,
I'm performing for, women.
Right.
So.
And how would that have worked? You would have to change your name, you said.
Yeah. He was like, would you use a different name? And we could just release it without your face.
Yeah, that's not really a music career, is it?
It would be kind of sad.
Yeah. Indeed.
So, I mean, it begs the question, like, am I just bitter? You know what I mean? Like, am I just jealous?
Right. Except for that he said he loves your music. So he said he loved my music. It's clearly not an issue of talent. Anyone who's heard you sing knows it's clearly not an issue of talent.
Thank you.
And your music as well is gorgeous.
I guess it would just be an issue of taste.
And that's really, I guess, what bothers me about the whole conversation of what's Jewish music these days, because it does boil down to taste. If you compare Bracha Jaffe's music with Yishai Ribo's, like Ma Kesher, like there's just so much different. Not only is it we're talking about one's a female, one's a man, and which also has a different vibe. It has a different sound. One's quite poppy. One, like, he's still maybe considered pop, but it's like a different sound. You know, the whole Israeli vibe.
Yeah.
There's so much under the sun these days. So when someone gets told your music's not Jewish, what does that mean? Like, is it because you're not saying I love Hashem every other sentence? Or like, I know I sound like I'm joking, but maybe half joking. But like, really, like what do you feel constitutes something that could be called Jewish?
So this is something that we've spoken about before. If we talk about lyrics, right? And I think that there is, I don't know how, I want to be sensitive and careful here, but I think that there is a double standard in terms of lyrics for men versus lyrics for women. And I think Yishai Ribo is a fantastic example, because Yishai Ribo, if you look at the lyrics of Halev Sheli, right? It's tremendously poetic. It is spiritual, but it doesn't have a pasuk in it, right? It is deep and it is emotional, and it is, there's plays on words, and it's very artistically done, right? But it seems like the standard today for most of the mainstream Jewish music it's motivational, it's pretty simple. Sometimes it's like a story, but it's not a lot of, in the world that you and I come from, like a singer-songwriter is bearing their soul when they sing.
Exactly, yeah.
And so they are talking about their personal experiences and their struggles.
It's very vulnerable.
And it's very vulnerable. And I think that maybe my music is too vulnerable. Like maybe it doesn't have that mainstream, like maybe if I put psukim in instead, or if, I don't know. I think maybe it's possible that it was just too kind of out of the box. Yeah. Too like weird and different. Like I have a song that you and I worked on together called Mother Bird that is about Shluach HaKain. But it's a mashal. So
I still 100% stand by that. You should put that song out.
thank you.
That's
So
next level.
it's about like saying goodbye to like a mother bird, like when you let her go, but it's also about like toxic relationships and like letting go of people with toxic relationships. And like maybe it's not considered sanua to admit as a singer that you have toxic relationships.
Interesting. Right. I don't like to say this. I don't want to say this, but I feel that there is a certain element here as if you're not sort of allowed to be a person with very difficult emotions in Jewish music. Like you're not allowed. There always has to be a resolution. There always has to be, it always has to
Yes.
be with Hashem has got my back, which is absolutely
Yes.
100% true.
Right, which is
then-
beautiful.
Right. But then where's the allowance that we're allowed to live in the difficult,
Yes.
you know, or the, and it's not even that. It's not because I want to write a song that's 100% like, I hate my life and this is hard, because I don't really want to be that kind of songwriter either. But the expectation that everything has to be sort of peppy,
Yes.
or
that when
know.
something's sad, like a lot of the time there'll be sad music, and
But
then
there's
at the
sad music out
end,
there too.
it always has to close up with like, but I know that you have me no matter what.
Yeah.
Which, like, I understand that that's uplifting. I think that people are trying to be careful about the message that they're giving over, especially in terms of like young people. But I also think it was like when I was a young person, right? I would listen to music that was sad or that was angry or that was painful, and I needed that 5 minutes to allow myself to experience that emotion.
Yeah.
I didn't need to be preached to immediately after feeling the emotion that like, but it's all gonna be okay.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because sometimes I think, oh, I've got it all wrong. Like sometimes I think, well, I don't want to go back to that space. Like I was the same as you, growing up listening to a lot of music that was very emotional. Okay, Sarah Bareilles is my favorite singer-songwriter in the history of the world ever. And I listened to a lot of, like, her first album, for instance, is so emotional, and like she really digs into the like life is hard, relationship is hard, whatever the things going on. And sometimes I would listen to a song and I'd be like, I'm so sad after that. like it just kind of lends itself to that, what's the word?
Catharsis?
No. Like
Self-indulgent?
yes, really indulging in the emotion. Which I think there is a danger there.
Sure.
There's a danger of really becoming a little self-indulgent in the emotion, and losing sight of what we need to be as Jewish women, which is a bit of that like, okay, stand up, brush yourself off, warrior lady. And so I think it's very hard to have that balance.
Sure.
Especially when we come from that world of, I just need to feel something.
I think what is one of the main difficulties at the crux of all of this is that something that's unique about the Jewish music industry is that every musician is expected to be a role model.
Yeah.
Maha Kesher. I'm good at singing, so I'm a role model.
Right.
I'm good at singing, so now I'm supposed to portray through my music what Benos Yisrael should want to be. Like, no, don't put that on me. And, you know, it's like, I'm not a Rebbitzin. People will, and it's,
Interesting.
yeah, I think it's like every Jewish singer is expected to be like, is this person a good example for Jews everywhere? And I think it's kind of like, why can't people just be musicians without having to be held to this standard of scrupulation of
That is such a good point.
Of like setting a moral standard.
So that question makes so much sense to me, of like, yeah, why do I have to be anything other than just this thing that I'm trying to be? I don't want to be anything other. But then if we were to zoom out a little bit and go, okay, well, but why am I doing this? Am I doing this just so I can be a good singer and sing for people? Is that ever just the end of the line? Can it be as a Jewish woman?
So no, I'm not suggesting
like
that. Sorry, I'm not suggesting that we make
I know you weren't
music
suggesting that, but
music for music's sake. I think it's more just like
a cultural aspect of it.
There's a lot of pressure on Jewish singers to dress right and talk right, and that everything is, it's like, what's the message that this is sending for the kids? And like, the reality is that people are born sometimes with talents, or they work hard to gain talents. And there's something that is beautiful and healthy about that person expressing those talents in the form of music. And there's something beautiful and healthy about enjoying and experiencing that music as a listener.
I think that the Jewish music world is maybe there's a little bit of vestige of what you just said is maybe not so accepted or not so true to a lot of people. Because I was just talking to someone on Instagram the other day, and they were telling me that Malki Genniger, who is a very well-renowned and lovely voice teacher in the New York area, and how she caught a lot of flack in the beginning for offering voice lessons, that it was not acceptable to train voices. We're talking about maybe 20 years ago. I don't know exactly how long, maybe 15 even. I'm not sure exactly.
15 probably.
15 years ago, it wasn't acceptable for a girl to work on her voice.
Yeah.
Because there was some expectation or rule that, well, you're not going to do anything with it, right? You're not going to become a singer. There's a danger that you're going to want to go out into the world and become a singer. And so it kind of almost like negates exactly what you just said of like, I just mean that viewpoint negates the idea that just singing and expressing your talent for the sake of it is enough. So there could be a bit of a vestige of that whole viewpoint within Jewish music these days.
Yes.
Like, you can't just sing because you like to sing.
Yeah. I had this with a student of mine who's a woman in her 60s with adult children, and she wrote an original song, and we're working on it together, and she's working on it with a producer in order to record it and put it out. And her adult son said to her, like, "Mommy, why are you doing this? You're going to embarrass us."
That's rough.
And it was so painful for her, and I saw the pain. But it was more like, what are you doing this for? What's the point of this?
Yeah.
And there are people like that, right? But that's a real lack of understanding of the physical, mental, emotional benefits, spiritual benefits of a singing practice. Yeah. And now we know through neuroscience and all these different things that singing is so healthy for the body and mind and soul. And that even if somebody doesn't do anything with it, even if they're not recording, even if they're not performing, even if nobody ever sees it except for their teacher, the simple act of going in and singing together with a teacher for an hour a week, it calms their nervous system and it puts them in a better place. It helps with anxiety. It helps with depression. It helps them have a feeling of fulfillment in their life. They leave and they go back into their lives. And even if you think, why is she singing? She should be home with her family, right? She's going to be more present for her family. She is going to be a better Jew, more connected in her davening, more connected to her neshama, if she is in a regular practice of singing.
100%. But to play devil's advocate, then what do we make of the fact that the women do want to put out their music? Then it's not just for themselves anymore. They want to put it out because there's an expectation that they hope to inspire people, right? Or they hope to.
Sure.
So then going back to our original question, is there a responsibility then to check ourselves about what it is we're putting out?
Sure.
But not so much that we have to negate our own personal experience in the music, right? That we should still be allowed to make music about our lives.
Yeah, I think that it's a fine line. And I think that Tznius is very dynamic. Because what tznius is changes all the time. It's extremely fluid. And from generation to generation, and even from 5 years to 5 years, meaning like when I was in seminary, you couldn't wear tie-dye because it was gayish. Now you go to Ramat Beit Shemesh Bet and everybody's wearing tie-dye. Right? And so it's
crazy.
like,
I know, when I saw it too, I was like, what's happening?
Or like denim.
What is happening?
Right?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm saying, and it depends on your kahila, and it depends where you are. And I think that it requires a tremendous amount of self-honesty and emotional intelligence and a real valuing of yourself and a self-confidence that doesn't come from your appearance or the perception of men, in order to make a real cheshbon nefesh, to make a real honest question about what is tzenua for me to share, what is tzenua for me to put out there. And if people are more tzniistic, then I think that's beautiful, right? But I wonder if there is a gray zone where there is space to bring in vulnerability into the music, or to bring something different into the music, originality into the music, while still keeping it wholesome and, not provocative. Right? I think also a lot of it has to do with vocal technique. Because sometimes when people hear music and they hear a woman singing, they think that's gayish, right? But they're reacting to, should I not say gayish?
No, it's fine. I was thinking of a situation. I don't want to interrupt you, but I was thinking of a situation I saw on this Coley Show WhatsApp group that I'm in, and somebody made a comment. Why do all the singers these days sound like they're singing in a bar? And to me, they sound very tame. It sounds very tame,
right,
aesthetically. But to her, it sounds like way too much.
So there are ways. Sometimes people do sing. They'll sing the lyrics, very Jewish lyrics, but the delivery is provocative. So I think that's also something that we need to keep our finger on the pulse of. Is like, is there something sensuous about the way that I am singing?
Right, sensuous, interesting. And it could be sensuous, or it could just be provocative in the sense that it's different too. And so I think that what's coming up for me is, well, somebody has to be the trailblazer.
Right.
Just like so many people before us were the trailblazers. It wasn't even okay to produce music and put out music 20 years ago, the Chanalas and the whoever else of the world that I don't even know about. Shindle and Tellis making like some of the first music videos, if I'm not mistaken. All these people who came before us that really caught a lot of flack. Is that the right expression?
Yes.
Caught a lot of flack for it. And so now we might be saying to ourselves, there's no audience for the type of music that we want to produce, but surely there has to be. Yeah. Because if you want to make it, there's people that want to listen to it, and it might not be the top of the list. It might not be super duper mainstream right away, but it might become more so as it becomes more accepted or acceptable.
Yeah, I think that it's very true that there are always going to be trailblazers who are coming and who are doing something different. And I think also that on a societal level, we see over and over again that the trailblazers do pay the price socially. In terms of what schools they send their kids to, et cetera, et cetera. So a person has to ask themselves, is it worth it?
Can I be the trailblazer?
Yeah. Am I willing to accept upon myself to be the trailblazer? And I think it's hard because that's not a simple question to answer.
It isn't.
It's not a simple question to answer.
Part of me wants to be like, well, you don't want to send to the schools that are going to have an issue with the type of music you would sing because you're not doing anything wrong. Right. But at the same time, I know that that's a bit naive because sometimes we have to make cheshbonos about like what's right for our particular child.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or let's say, now we're going to get a whole nother can of worms. Let's say that the school that accepts you for who you are, the kids from that school are less likely to stay religious.
Right.
So we have like undeniably in the Jewish music scene, we have the Baal Tshuva effect, right? Which is Baalei Tshuva who come in and they do something different. And I think, and this is going to be controversial, but it's true.
Dun, dun, dun. As if everything that we have just said isn't.
Every single thing we've said is controversial. In a way, as a Baal Tshuva, I acknowledge that there is good reason for the frum world to be wary of Baalei Tshuva.
Self-hating Baalei Tshuva.
Self-hating. No, not self-hating. Self-loving. But the reality is, it is such a huge life shift.
Yeah.
And we are coming from such a completely different world. And not everybody can handle it. It's a huge, huge commitment. And I have had many, many friends from over the years since I became religious who have gone off. And that's because you got to be tough, you got to be flexible, you have to give things up, you have to be okay with not everybody liking you, you have to be able to accept certain things and be at peace with certain things that sometimes people get very angry about or very hurt by, right? And I think that when people come in from the non-Jewish world and they bring their non-Jewish music influences into Jewish music, then people say, whoa, wait a second.
Hold the phone. But it's maybe just because I'm a convert and because I don't want to think of myself in terms of being a threat, even though I totally vibe with what you're saying. Can we not view it in the sort of like Mashiach way of like, well, isn't this what's supposed to be happening? We are here for a reason, like we came from where we came from for a reason, and we're here now for a reason. And there's this like integration that can happen versus like shunning completely.
Sure.
Where you came from. I mean, the values and the whatever that you feel that you need to shed. Okay, fine. But for me to come in and say, okay, well, I'm just not going to try to better myself technically as a singer because that's not considered quote unquote Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy to me. Mm-hmm. To me, that's crazy. It's like, no, I should bring all that training to the Jewish world.
Sure.
And we should elevate the Jewish music together, right?
But if you come in and you bring your hip hop background and you're like, yo, Shema Yisrael.
Which some people are doing quite successfully.
Which some people are doing, I don't personally feel comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel that it cheapens the Kedusha of the Jewish words and the psukim and the whatever to put it on a rap beat.
Interesting.
Personally.
So we each have our lines.
Right, we each have our lines. And it's a feeling of does this feel wholesome?
I think it's like ultimately for me it depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I happen to really enjoy Nissim Black's music because I think he is 100% authentic and 100% genuine.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard other rap artists that I feel like no, not to my taste, so I think it does depend a little bit too on like who it is,
right?
But this begs the question too of like, well, we can't completely shelter our Jewish music from all outside influences because everything bleeds into the other, and
sure,
we can't say with 100% certainty that the Jewish music that we are writing or listening to these days isn't at all influenced by any secular music whatsoever, because of course it is.
Of course
we
it
don't
is.
live
of
in
course
a vacuum.
It is. Yeah, yes, but, and I can't believe I'm saying this because I could just hear like somebody hearing me talk and thinking that I'm really the opposite of how I am. Mm-hmm. Because everything that I'm saying, I have struggled with and fought against, and because my nature is like, be who you are, who cares, forget labels, Mashiach consciousness, right. like Hashem wanted me to be born where I'm born and I'm coming from where I'm coming from, and let's be unafraid, and who cares about normal and who cares about societal norms, and like, can't we just like rid ourselves of that and like live with the MS and be real, right? And then the more pragmatic part of myself has learned that a lot of the people who disregard the importance of normal within the Jewish world, their kids don't say frum.
Yeah.
And the evidence speaks for itself.
Hard, that issue of conformity.
Yes.
Which brings us back to the music of like, okay, so there feels to an extent like I need to conform.
Yes.
To what is the standard. And maybe that's the answer. Maybe, like you said, everyone starts out singing other people's music. Mm-hmm. Everyone gets in singing cover songs, and maybe you can do what seems to be pretty par of in the beginning, and then as you become more of a household name or become accepted in the Jewish music world, then you can start to
branch out
a
once
little
you've
bit.
gained
I don't know how
trust.
authentic that feels to each individual person, but that is absolutely an approach.
Yeah. You have to get your foot in the door by playing the game, establish trust, and then you can start playing with boundaries and testing new things and doing different things. Because I think people are understandably wary, because people are protective. They're protective of their kedusha. They're protective
which is
of
so understandable.
Their children. They just want to make sure all everybody wants is just for their family to be happy and to love Hashem and know that Hashem loves them. That's all any of us really want, right?
Yeah.
But, we all have different ways of trying to achieve those means. And so I empathize with and appreciate the people who are careful about the influences that they let in, because they want to protect their heart and they want to protect their children's heart, and they don't want to let anything that is not wholesome. But I also am so happy that this world of what is considered wholesome and what is being accepted as wholesome is expanding. It's getting bigger.
Yeah.
It's starting with the men, because they have less Tznius restrictions on them.
Right.
The Zushas of the world.
Gotta love the Zushas.
Who are bringing, and Tai, and all these people who are bringing in all these different amazing influences. And then slowly it's trickling down. And then the journey of the Jewish woman singer in this context is just a microcosm of the journey of the Jewish woman in general. Right. Which is, how do I take all of this love and creativity that I have and express it in a way that doesn't sacrifice my dignity?
And I think that intention that you just described is so important, because that will come across. Yeah. When the intention becomes, I'm a singer and I'm amazing and I want to put my music out there, I think it seeps in. We start to see that there's maybe a lack of tzniut.
Yeah.
Even when it's on paper, it's nua.
It has to be humble.
Yeah, I think that really speaks a lot. It speaks very loudly. And I would say that about Yishai Rebo. I see him, and he's just like enough, and his music just speaks for itself. And I bless us all. Bless you, bless me, that we, and everyone listening, that we can really just find that place of pure intention. And what is it we're actually trying to express and be in the world? And like you said, be that. We're not trying to put on a show, but just be that and have it come through really authentically in the music.
Amen. And just as a I may have gotten that no from that producer, but the world of creativity and the path of the artist is paved with many, many no's. And he may have felt that I wouldn't sell to the Jewish world, but I'm now producing myself and in the studio next week and working on this song. And God willing, maybe it will sell, maybe it won't sell. But just like I was saying before, if I'm going to practice what I preach, I have to believe that there is worth in me expressing and creating this music. Yeah. And if it resonates with even one person, then I'll just be so glad that I did it.
Wonderful. Can you tell us what the song, you mentioned before about getting your foot in the door of it? Do you feel that this song is a bit of that safe space in terms of getting your foot in the door?
So this song is called Believe. I wrote it after Rosh Hashanah, when I felt like I had a bad Rosh Hashanah, because I was just feeling what is this world of schar and onesh? What does it mean? If I'm good, then I'll have good, and if I'm bad, then I'll have bad. And I don't feel like I was good. So now does that mean that my year will be bad? And I just opened my heart and wrote from a really vulnerable place. But I think that it's a really universal experience. And I think it's going to be a really uplifting song. And I'm just really, really excited to share it with people.
I'm so excited. I've been telling you, for everyone listening, I've been telling Lizzie for as long as I've known you, which isn't that long, but at least a couple years, new?
Yeah,
Where's
yeah.
your music? Where everybody needs
it's
to listen to this. So I'm
scary.
so excited and can't wait to listen to the song when it's out. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I feel like we could have continued this
We
conversation.
could do this every week.
I know. I'm like, should we just have a Nechamalea and Lizzi podcast?
Yeah.
I feel like we could have continued this conversation for like hours and hours and hours.
Totally.
But we do have to get to life. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nechamalea. This was really cool.
And it's so nice to talk with you just in person about we talk a lot on WhatsApp. So this is really cool to just dig into some of these things and see how deep you are and how like
you're so deep. That's
thanks.
one of the things I love about you the most is how deep you are. And I hope that the people found it interesting.
Same. Thank you so much for listening.
Bye.
Bye. Happy singing. My log off line is happy singing.
Oh, let's say it together.
Okay.
Happy singing.